Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
All right, so we just started here. I just want to give it just about 10 seconds to give people a chance to log in.
That sounds awesome.
Okay. All right. All right, so let's go ahead. I'll go ahead and just get started here. Welcome. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Melissa. I am the founder and executive director of Breezy Heart Foundation, and I work as a healer and facilitator.
And hello, I'm Jill McKnight. I am the founder and CEO of Locate Coaching and a trauma-informed life coach. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
So this is the start of our Anchor to Rise, Resilience to Rebuild series. And like Jill said, we're so excited to have you here today because this series is all about helping you heal, feel safer inside yourself, and find your own voice again. And this mini class, when speaking up feels like a threat, is a powerful first step in our series. We're going to focus on two common ways that threats show up. So that this threat shows up. It's the internal freezing when your voice gets stuck and your body tightens up, and disappearing when you make yourself small or make your feelings seem unimportant. And these things often happen without us even realizing it. And over time, they slowly make it harder to trust your own gut when you need to speak up. And so we'll talk about what this really feels like in everyday life, how it messes with how you see yourself, but most importantly, how to spot it when it's happening. And our goal isn't just to point it out, but to gently help you get more comfortable being seen, one small step at a time. And so this session is part of a bigger series where we'll dig deeper into changing old habits and exploring ways to heal. But today is about giving you a simple, powerful tool you can use right away.
Exactly. For so many of us, the idea of really being seen or truly speaking our mind can bring up deep fear. It's not just being shy. Often it's a way we learned to survive. Somewhere along the way, our bodies and minds picked up that being visible or speaking out might lead to trouble. Maybe sharing what you needed led to being put down, or having an opinion meant you were silenced. Today, we'll look at why this happens and give you two helpful tools to gently teach yourself that it can be safe to take up space. Those two are the inner compass check-in and the reframe statement.
Yeah, and just a heads up, this example we plan to use today talks about tough internal moments with family. And so we won't focus on anything too intense, but we want to be honest that this topic can bring up strong feelings. So please take care of yourself however you need to. Step away, breathe, take notes, whatever feels right for you.
As we go through this, we encourage you to notice what comes up for you: thoughts, feelings, even physical sensations. We'll have a dedicated time at the end for your questions and reflections in the chat. For now, just tuning into yourself is powerful work.
All right, so let's start simple with a quick check-in as we get going. So just drop a heart in the chat if you've ever felt that internal squeeze when you needed to say something, but your words just would not come out. Or a ghost, if you've ever had that moment where you wanted to disappear, to become totally invisible in a conversation, especially with family. That internal struggle, that quiet pull back, that's often the very start of your system feeling threatened when you need to speak up. And that's where we're going to begin today.
Just by being here, by naming it, even if it's silently, you're already starting to break its hold. You're beginning to claim your truth back one step at a time. Sometimes the hardest part is just figuring out where to start. You don't need perfect words. You just need to be present. And we'll find those words about how to name it together.
Okay, so let's talk about what happens when speaking up feels like a threat. You've probably felt that inner fight, that resistance, and at its core, it's a deep physical reaction meant to make you pull back, to doubt your own urge to speak. And that could be your urge to talk, to show emotion, or to even ask for what you need. And this doesn't mean you're shy. This means you're in survival mode, operating from an internal habit you learned that makes you feel unsure, even ashamed, and or resistant to use your voice. When your system is constantly telling you to stay quiet, to ignore what is true, or it makes you feel like you're just too much, it's a type of control happening inside of you, and it often stems from past experiences, especially with family. And so today, we're going to focus on two specific ways this threat shows up. You have the internal freezing and disappearing. So, internal freezing is when your system just locks up. You have a thought, feeling, a boundary you want to share, but your voice gets stuck. Your body tenses up and you just can't say it. So, let's think about the qualities of internal freezing. One way it shows up is through a physical lockup. You might feel a tightness in your throat, a clenched jaw, or tension in your shoulders or your chest. And it's like your body is physically preventing the words from coming out, even if your brain knows what it wants to say. And so another one is like your mind goes completely blank. And one moment you have a clear idea or response, and the next your mind is just completely empty. All your thoughts vanish, making it impossible to form a coherent sentence. And you can also experience sort of a sense of paralysis. So with this one, it's not just that you don't speak, it's that you physically cannot speak. There's like this overwhelming feeling of being stuck, unable to move forward with your words, as if an invisible force is holding you back. And so another one is a sudden silence when your voice disappears. So you might interrupt yourself mid-sentence or find yourself unable to start speaking at all, even when there's a clear opening in the conversation. And this silence feels heavy, awkward, and even socially painful. And at the heart of this internal freeze, this internal reaction, is your brain's attempt to protect you. So if in the past, speaking up led to negative experiences like judgment or shame or feeling unsafe, your brain learned that staying silent was a safer option. It's a survival mechanism kicking in, designed to make you question your ability to speak. And over time, this protective pattern becomes incredibly effective. You might find yourself stopping even when you had exactly what you wanted to say all planned out. Ultimately, you start to lose trust in yourself to voice your true thoughts and feelings. So let's move on to the second tactic, which is disappearing. And disappearing is a bit trickier. It's when you quietly make yourself or your concerns seem smaller, making them seem silly or blown out of proportion, even to yourself. And here are some qualities of disappearing. Okay, so first, you minimize your needs and feelings. And you'll hear yourself say things like, it's really not that big of a deal, or I'm probably just overreacting, and you downplay your own experience to make it seem less important. So the next one is physical shrinking, and your body might literally try to take up less space. So you might slump your shoulders and avoid eye contact and cross your arms tightly or try to blend in with the background. And another one is you might avoid attention. So, for example, you might steer conversations away from yourself or your opinions. You might change the subject or agree quickly, even if you disagree, or avoid situations where you might need to speak up altogether. You might also self-silence your thoughts. So you might hear your inner voice saying, don't make waves. It's not worth the fuss. And just let it go. And these thoughts convince you that it's better to stay quiet than to assert yourself. And then lastly, and I am guilty of this one too, is prioritizing others' comfort. You might put yourself, someone else's potential discomfort or reaction above your own feelings and needs. The fear of upsetting someone becomes more powerful than your own desire to be heard. And this kind of internal message, it slowly chips away at your right to be fully yourself. It tells you that what you feel or need isn't important. It's not serious, and it's not worth standing up for. So now both of these tactics, freezing and disappearing, they're actually super smart in a very messed up way, right? Because they work even if you don't realize it. They wear down your ability to trust your own voice, especially when you're dealing with family. And so that's really the worst part, is it completely cuts you off from your own inner compass right when you need your voice the most. So now let's make this real. We're going to follow a woman named Monica as she deals with these internal red flags. But first, let's understand a little more about Monica's background because it helps explain why she reacts the way that she does. So from the time she was little, Monica quickly learned that her mother, Eleanor, had a strong and sometimes covert way of getting what she wanted. Eleanor was kind, but also deeply controlling, especially when it came to Monica's life choices. Anytime Monica tried to voice a different opinion or express a need that didn't fit Eleanor's plans, her mother would react in subtle, covert ways to let her know. She didn't yell, but there was a quiet hurt tone in her voice, a disapproving or disappointed sigh, the one, or a heavy silence that made Monica feel so guilty. Eleanor often withdrew love too, subtly pulling back affection or praise if Monica didn't conform. She also had a tendency towards triangulation, discussing Monica's difficulties with other family members, creating a subtle, unified front of disapproval. This made Monica feel abandoned, overwhelmed with shame and guilt from other family members, further compounding her discomfort. Now, if Monica did insist on a need, the days and weeks or even months of subtle covert retaliation, like forgetting invitations, chilly phone calls, or pointed advice from relatives, became completely unbearable. The loss of love and isolation was simply too painful, making her feel it was never worth the cost of speaking her truth. And so these constant low-level emotional messages taught Monica a core lesson. It was safer to stay small, to keep the peace, and to agree, even if it meant hiding her own desires. And her childhood was a masterclass in reading her mother's moods and adjusting her own authentic self to keep her happy. And these early experiences wired Monica's system to believe that speaking up could lead to emotional pain and isolation, creating the perfect condition for her to internally freeze or disappear when faced with conflict, especially with her family. And now, with that context, let's pay attention to how Monica's body feels, what thoughts pop into her head, and how these internal tricks try to make her doubt herself in this real situation.
What I see so often in the women I've worked with, and honestly, what I've felt myself, is how internal freezing and disappearing make you feel like you're losing your hold on your own voice. You think, why do I do this? Why can't I just say it? And you start pulling back, keeping quiet, walking on eggshells, even inside your own head. That's not just feeling a bit off. That's a deep-seated habit, a learned way of being.
And so, yeah, and also I want to underscore the point. A threat response isn't always aggressive or loud. Instead, it's often subtle and quiet, and can come from patterns we learned from people we care about, which makes it even harder to recognize.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's jump into Monica's story. Monica felt a familiar knot in her stomach, as her phone rang, seeing her mother Eleanor's name flash across the screen. She loves her mom, don't get her wrong, but their talks often felt like walking on eggshells. For as long as Monica could remember, Eleanor always swooped in, took charge, and knew best, especially when it came to Monica's life. Her mother always had good intentions, but they came with a huge need to be in control. And anytime Monica tried to stand up for what she wanted, something subtle but strong would happen. And so her mother wouldn't yell. Instead, her voice would get quiet, sounding a bit hurt. There would be, again, this disappointed or disapproving sigh and a long pause that felt heavier than any shout or passive-aggressive comment about Monica being ungrateful or difficult. Sometimes her mom would just even start talking about how much she had given up, leaving Monica feeling swamped with guilt. And these small, constant reactions taught Monica a powerful, painful lesson. It was safer to stay small, to keep things calm, even if it meant losing herself. And her childhood was like a training course in reading her mother's moods, guessing what she needed, and changing her own wishes to fit her mother's wishes. And today was no different. Today, her mother was laying out grand plans for Monica's upcoming birthday. I've already booked the private room at the Grand Darling and invited all your aunts and uncles. Cousin Brenda will be there too, of course. For the menu, I'm thinking prime rib and that lovely salmon you adore. She just kept going, deciding every single detail. Monica's stomach tightened. She had already gently hinted weeks ago that she really wanted a quiet birthday this year. Just a simple dinner with her husband, Mark, maybe a close friend or two. But it seemed like those hints were ignored. Monica's mind immediately started to search for ways to share her preference for a quiet birthday with her mother. She really wanted a peaceful, calm day, a true break, not another big planned event by someone else. But the thought of upsetting her mom, of seeing that familiar, hurt look, to hear that disapproving sigh, made a knot grow in her stomach. Her breath felt shallow, and it got stuck in her chest. Okay, so here's where internal freezing showed up in Monica's story. Remember how Monica described feeling a tightness in her throat and pressure in her chest as she tried to speak? She also pictured her mother's disapproving sigh, instantly felt this strong urge to be quiet. This is the perfect example of internal freezing. Monica's body is reacting to an emotional danger she learned from the past, even if her mom isn't actively guilting or shaming her right then. Regardless, her system is saying, danger, stay quiet. Her voice is literally getting locked away. And remember how she described her jaw clenching and her shoulders pulling up and a slight tremble in her hands? She might even have felt a wave of dizziness. That psychological response communicates to Monica, your voice is dangerous. Your ideas are inconvenient. You're better off silent. The internal threat doesn't always shout. It often whispers in these small physical moments where you pull back. And for Monica, it wasn't just about one birthday. It was about years of messaging from her mother and family teaching her that her voice, when it didn't match her mother's, led to emotional abandonment and isolation. Something she learned to avoid at all costs. And she was trained to believe that her silence kept the peace, even if it crushed her own sense of self. Okay, so here's where disappearing came in for Monica. After her body froze, Monica found herself letting her mother continue planning. Later, she felt a wave of self-blame, playing down her own wish. She thought, it's probably not that big of a deal. It's just one day and it makes mom happy. But here's the thing. Monica's truth is that she had a good reason for wanting her own birthday plan. But instead, she disappeared. She allowed her body to shrink, her words to dissolve in her throat, and she chose to make herself and her needs smaller, not just for others, but for herself. And now she's feeling guilty, wondering why she couldn't just speak up, and then telling herself her true feelings weren't important. And so remember how she thought, why am I like this? And likely felt her shoulders slumping as she said, it's just a party, get over it. This disappearing by choosing safety or avoiding conflict over being her true self, and then telling herself that staying quiet was the right thing to do. This is where disappearing is sneaky. But it really hurts. It makes Monica question what she's capable of and her right to even have an opinion. And it says maybe what you think isn't real. Maybe your voice isn't needed. That's the core of the threat response. You can't trust your gut feelings to be seen. And these small moments are powerful. Monica's inner experience isn't about big, loud abuse, but it's soaked in the emotional pain of a system that learned to be invisible. Monica might later wonder, am I the problem? Did I make a big deal out of nothing? So let's look at another moment from Monica's life, showing how these tactics can surface in different situations. So a few months later, Monica had a big family dinner. Her uncle, who was usually pretty quiet, suddenly started sharing some really strong opinions about politics. Monica strongly disagreed with him. She felt that familiar stir inside her, a push to share a different idea, to speak up for what she believed in. She started to think about what she could say, trying to figure out how to calmly express her viewpoint. Her brother, sitting right next to her, gently nudged her under the table. Don't bother, Mon, he whispered, barely moving his lips. You know how Uncle John gets. Just let it go. So a strange, heavy feeling spread through Monica. Her mind, which had just been full of ideas and calm responses, suddenly went totally blank. And it was like a switch had been flipped, and all her thoughtful words just vanished. Her throat felt tight again, that familiar pressure squeezing her chest. She suddenly felt a powerful urge just to sink into her chair, to completely become invisible at the table. She looked down at her plate, pushing food around, pretending to be completely focused on her meal. Her voice, which had been ready to speak, it wasn't there. And later that night, as they were leaving, her husband, Mark, asked, you seemed a bit quiet tonight, honey. Is everything okay? And Monica shrugged. Oh, it was nothing, just tired, I guess. Uncle John's rants are always boring. No point in making a fuss. So let's break this down in the second story. We see both internal freezing and disappearing happening again for Monica, but in a slightly different way. When her brother nudged her and whispered, don't bother, Mon, just let it go, Monica's system immediately registered that old danger signal, the why behind her freezing. Here is a deep-seated lesson from childhood. Disagreements leads to trouble, even when people who mean well in your family. Monica described her mind going completely blank and her throat feeling tight again, and that familiar pressure squeezing her chest. These are all physical signs of her system shutting down her voice to protect her from that expected fuss. And she wasn't just choosing not to speak. Her body was physically stopping her, locking her voice away. And so disappearing after her body froze, Monica then slipped into a classic disappearing act. She described herself as suddenly feeling a powerful urge to sink into her chair, to become completely invisible at the table. And she looked down at her plate, pushing food around, pretending to be absorbed. Her whole body language, her actions screamed, I am not here. My opinions don't matter. And then later, Mark asked, when Mark asked, she made her feelings feel small. So she downplayed in her mind's way of trying to make the disappearing feel okay, trying to excuse her silence and make her real thoughts seem unimportant. She told herself her voice didn't matter, chipping away at her self-worth just a little bit more.
And this is how the internal threat works. It isn't always loud. Sometimes it's gentle. It wears the mask of protection. But deep down, it slowly takes away your ability to trust your gut when it comes to being seen. For Monica, it wasn't just about one birthday or one family dinner. It was a slow buildup of countless moments where her true desires were pushed aside to manage other people's feelings. This wasn't about being weak. It was about becoming really good at avoiding conflict, really good at making herself invisible to keep the peace. It became her default setting, a survival strategy so deeply ingrained she barely noticed it happening. Internal freezing says, your voice is stuck, don't risk it. Disappearing says, you're better off quiet. Your needs aren't important enough. And both together can leave you feeling like you have no firm ground to stand on when you need to express yourself. So when your system keeps telling you to keep quiet or questions your right to be present, it's not about what you can or can't do. It's a learned habit. And when you name it, when you say that's internal freezing or that's disappearing, you take back a little bit of your power. Now that we've talked about how your inner system can sound the alarm, making it feel risky just to speak up, let's take a breath. You don't have to fight that fear. You can meet it gently with tools that connect you back to what's real for you.
That's right. We're going to take you through two practices. One is about listening to your inner compass. The other is about rewiring the old stories in your head. And these tools you can take with you and try in your real life starting today.
The first tool is the inner compass check-in. When you feel that inner squeeze, the urge to shrink, to hide, to say nothing, before you react, pause. Turn inward. What's happening inside of you? This isn't about forcing anything. It's about being honest with yourself first. Notice your body. What feelings are you feeling physically? Is it a tight chest, a fast heart, tension in your throat? Just notice it. Don't judge it. Then name the emotion. What's here? Is it fear, sadness, frustration, confusion? Give it a name. Just doing that can bring some relief. And third, ask your inner compass. If I were being true to myself, what would I know right now? What is that wise, calm part of me trying to say? For example, I need to feel safe. I want to be heard. This feels wrong for me. This isn't about fixing things or reacting right away. It's about getting back to your calm center. You are allowed to slow down. You are allowed to know how you feel, even if you don't act on it yet. That's powerful self-leadership. Let's go back to Monica and her mother. Imagine Monica had paused before she closed her mouth and used this tool. She might have noticed in her body, her throat felt tight, that squeeze in her chest, that familiar knot of dread in her stomach. Her hands were clammy, her shoulders crept up to her ears. She felt a subtle tremor in her voice box, a quiet hum of anxiety. Emotionally, she fears her mother's disappointment, deep frustration that her wishes were ignored, and a quiet sadness that her needs felt so unimportant in this relationship. She felt a surge of resentment bubbling beneath the surface, hot and very uncomfortable. When she looks at her inner compass, I need to feel heard about my own birthday. My wish for a quiet celebration is valid. I don't want to upset mom, but I also don't want to ignore my own feelings anymore. My need for peace matters. I deserve to choose how I celebrate my day. This feeling of resentment tells me I'm abandoning myself. Just pausing to know this truth, even if she still doesn't speak up in that exact moment, would have changed everything for Monica. She would have stayed connected to herself instead of slipping into that self-blame and that familiar pattern of pleasing others at her own expense. She would have acknowledged that her own pain and desire, rooting herself in her truth instead of leaving it behind. This small internal shift is the first step towards getting your voice back. Now let's talk about those sneaky little thoughts that try to shut you down and shut you up. You know the ones. It's not that big of a deal. You're too sensitive. Or you'll only make it worse. These are old scripts, often passed down, often practiced over and over, and they're not the truth. This tool, the reframe statement, helps you face those thoughts with someone true, something or someone truer, kinder, and more powerful. And that someone is you. Spot the limiting thought. What's the exact phrase running through your head? For example, is it, I shouldn't speak up? Think about where it came from. Now, this is an optional part of the practice, is the second step, but think about where it came from. Does it sound like someone from your past? A pattern from when you were a kid or from a past relationship? For Monica, she might recognize Eleanor's voice or the feeling she got growing up when she tried to speak up. That's the voice of needing to be the good girl I heard when I was small. You can change it with a self-affirming truth. Instead of saying, I'm overreacting, you can reframe it. My feelings are real. They're trying to tell me something important. My sensitivity is a strength because it helps me know what I need. Another example, instead of, I'll make things worse by speaking up, you can reframe it. My truth brings clarity, not confusion, and my peace matters more than avoiding someone else's discomfort or trying to control how they react. A third example, instead of, it's not a big deal, the reframe could be, if it matters to me, it matters. Period. My wishes for my own life are worth honoring and protecting. The more you practice this, even if it's just once a day, but a little more is better than that, the more your body starts to trust your inner voice, not those old fears, not that old story. So let's go back to Monica's story. Remember how she thought, it's probably not that big a deal. It's just one day and I'll make it, I'll make mom happy. This thought popped up right after her internal freeze, pushing her into the disappearing tactic and convincing her even more to give up on herself. If Monica had the reframe statement tool, she could have met the self-silencing thought with a powerful truth. Imagine her taking a breath and internally at first, saying to her mother and to herself and her family, Mom, my birthday wishes matter to me, and my desire for a quiet celebration is valid. My feelings are real, even if they're different from your plans. I deserve to feel good on my birthday, not just make someone else happy. My needs aren't ungrateful. They are real and deserve to be recognized. My peace matters more than avoiding your discomfort or trying to control how you react. Now, this isn't about saying these words out loud in that moment necessarily. This is a powerful internal shift. Each time Monica noticed the subtle retaliation, whether it was a chilly phone call, a pointed comment from her mom or a family member, or a feeling of isolation, she could repeat this reframe statement to herself internally, to her mother, and to her family, but all still in her mind. This practice helps her to consistently remind herself of her worth and the validity of her feelings, gradually rewiring her system, what's going on in her head, to prioritize her own well-being over the fear of disapproval. This internal shift is a huge step.
Yeah, and we've got some echo there. Okay, so what we've covered today about spotting internal freezing and disappearing and how to gently start reconnecting with your inner truth using the inner compass check-in and the reframe statement. Now we'd love to hear from you. What thoughts or questions are coming up for you? Which of these tools are you curious to try first? So feel free to share in the chat.
All right. We just wanted to thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts. Your willingness to engage with this work is truly powerful. This session, like the rest of the Resilience to Rebuild series, is just a doorway, a first step. If this work speaks to you, if something inside of you is waking up, we invite you to go deeper with us in the full Anchor to Rise coaching program. Anchor to Rise is a 12-session journey for anyone ready to stop hiding and to start truly living their truth. You'll gently let go of old survival habits, reconnect with your inner voice, and build that kind of self-trust that doesn't crumble when life gets tough.
Exactly. And you'll move from feeling invisible to making an impact, from feeling burned out to having clear direction, from asking yourself, who am I to do this? To confidently saying, I know who I am. And so our first coaching group starts on July 12th, and we'd love for you to be part of it. We're hosting a free 40-minute program preview on July 5th. This is your chance to see how our coaching style and get a clear idea of what the full program offers. Don't miss out on the updates for future coaching dates and other events coming up. And I encourage you to join our mailing list or our email list. And so thank you for showing up so fully today for yourself, for your healing, for your growth. That's not a small thing. It's brave, truly. This work takes courage, real courage. It's not easy to name the times you've disappeared or made yourself small to survive. And it's even harder to imagine a life where you don't have to do that anymore. But the fact that you're here today, willing to be present, to think, to be open, that really matters. That's a powerful beginning.
A more real life is possible. And it doesn't need big, dramatic changes. It starts with small, steady moments. Moments like this. Each time you pause to notice what you need, each time you choose to speak kindly to yourself instead of silencing your truth, each time you take up just a little more space than you did the day before, you are rewriting your story.
So, as we finish today, I want you to remember this, not just as words, but as a living reminder. You are allowed to take up space. You are. Even if you're still learning how, even if your voice shakes a little, even if you're not sure, your presence matters, your needs matter, and your truth is worth honoring.
We are so grateful you joined us. We hope today gave you something real to hold on to, something that helps you feel grounded and reminds you that rising starts right here. Your rise matters, and we'd love to support you along the way. Be sure to check out our other free sessions and group coaching events by signing up for our emails.